You've all been in this position before. What you've got is two things. You have a trellis, and you have a climbing rose, and lastly, you have no clue what to do next. Because what you want is a wall of flowers. You want flowers from the bottom of the trellis up to the top of the trellis. What's probably happened in the past is you basically have just trained the climber onto the trellis, and after 2 or 3 years, all the flowers are up at the top. And in order to stop and smell the roses, you got to start like trying to jump up at it or get a buddy to hoist you up or get a step ladder, and that's just too much trouble. So, if you just understand a couple of basic concepts of how a climbing rose produces its flowers, then the rest is easy. So let me explain that concept to you, and I think then you'll understand what you're going to need to do. The key to the whole thing lies here, in the way you train the cane. By training the cane more horizontally, or at least at 45-degree angles so you can go back and forth that way across the trellis, you get all these little bud eyes to break. If you only train it straight up, that's when you only get flowers at the top. So you see these eyes that are breaking and they're throwing off these little laterals? This is my main cane. Those are my laterals. There's 2 videos you might want to look at, by the way. One on pruning climbing roses, the other one on how to pillar a rose. They'll explain some of these concepts as well. But you can see here, I've already got buds on every single one of these little laterals spaced no more than 2 inches apart. That's going to be completely covered in bloom. So again, there's my main cane, there's my little laterals, and I want to train it between 45 degrees and horizontally as much as I possibly can. That's going to give me the flowering that I'm looking for. Now that you understand that concept, we can start training the rose onto the trellis. So remember, this is no good. Vertical is no good like this. You want to think horizontal to 45 degrees. So on the Ashdown and Bloomerama meter, this is okay, this is okay, this is going to get you flunked. So what I'm going to do is take these canes and I'm going to go in either direction, and I'm going to start going back and forth at 45-degree angles across the trellis, snaking them across each other. I'll get going, and then I'll come back in and let you see what I've done in just a little bit. That just about gets everything trained the way I want it to go. I'll bring you in closer in just a little bit so you can see exactly what I've done. But I want to talk about a couple of things. First of all, you want to make sure that your trellis is either already there or you put in at the same time as your rose. Because that way when these canes begin to grow and they're young and pliable, that's the easiest way to train this. In this case, this is a 3-year-old plant and I'm in the middle of a bed. And this is just a temporary trellis tacked onto some 2x4x4s and a couple of bricks holding it down. And don't try this at home because I am a professional. The second thing you want to think about is this. In this case, I've got some older canes that the tops were kind of bloomed out and sort of overdone. They've pretty much done, so I want to freshen them up a little bit. But rather than take them out completely, I'm actually just going to go ahead and tie them in down here below. I've got one over here and I've got one over here. Because these are going to completely sprout out and give me flowers down in here. So if you've got some of these canes that are shorter, work with them. If they're obviously no good, then go ahead and haul them out. But don't be afraid to tie those in as well to give you bloom lower down. So let me tie that in, and then I'll show you what I've done. There, that should pretty much take care of it. Now you can see here a little bit more detail what I've done. I got a piece of cardboard back here so to give us a solid background. I've got canes coming this way. From the other side, I've got canes coming this way. The same thing up here. And as this cane, for example, goes all the way to the edge of the trellis, I'll just turn it back around and train it right back up the other way. A nice little curve. And off we go. Now let me give you a couple little tips. If you've got an older rose that you do need to train and the canes aren't flexible, bend them as far as you can, tie them in, wait about 4 to 5 weeks, and then you'll be able to bend them a little bit more. By doing it over stages, you'll eventually get it to go to where you want it to go. Now a couple of other things that you can do if you want, you could take some of the canes from the rose straight up, then at the top half of the trellis begin to wind them. Take the other ones and wind them on the bottom half, so you're using half the rose for the top of the trellis, half the rose for the bottom of the trellis. That'll certainly work. Another great way to do this is to plant 2 roses on this trellis. Much like the concept that we did in layering an arbor with roses, it's the same kind of thing. Now I know the cynic in you was saying, wait a minute, he just wants to sell more roses, and well, you'd be right. How do you think I pay for this stuff? But it does work. You can put one down below, like perhaps over on this part of the trellis, use it to cover the bottom, put another one over here, take it more straight up, and then begin to use it to cover the top. That's going to really give you that wall of flowers in a hurry. So there's a couple little secrets you can maybe pick up on to go with. But here's the only thing you've really got to remember when you're working with a climbing rose. Don't think vertical, think horizontal.